is my religion. Love is my weapon. And I will never give up to love, even for 1 second. Nothing is hidden and nothing forbidden in love's world. My spiritual nature will always guide me, always know what is right or what is wrong. Truth is my religion. Truth is my weapon. And I will never ever surrender to anybody for a second. Stop pretending for a while and start listening to your heart. Your spiritual nature will always protect you.
Right. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to episode 12 of Relentless. Tonight is a special night. So the intro there, of course, was Paul Jarrah, great West Australian musician. Are you into the blues? And of course, as I said, love is my religion and truth is my religion and my weapon. Couldn't agree more. Huge fan of Paul Jarrah. So tonight we're going to get straight into it, and I'm going to bring on my co-host this evening, who is the most wonderfulest and another relentless friend, freedom fighter. Of course, we have Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing very good. It's going to be a good night.
I think so. And you had the circus this evening. I was watching you there tonight. How was that? Because you had 2 weeks off, didn't you? So
I did. Well, on account of us getting banned for our evil opinions. How dare Michael interview a lesbian who had the wrong thoughts? But we finally managed to kind of get around that. But no, it was good. One of the, I guess, hilarious but depressing things about those shows is just how easy it is to find material, just because there's so many things going on. Like, I didn't even cover the Lisa Wilkinson scandal today. I didn't even cover the sudden spontaneous fires in Canada. Like, there's just so much stuff going on all the time that I'm often just cutting content out. Like, that's how ridiculous it's getting, really. So, Clown World is, cutting it short, if anything.
So we've got Michael watching there. Hi, Michael. How are you going?
Hello.
So let's not muck about anymore. No. I want to bring on our fabulous guest this evening. I'm so excited. We have all the way from LA. It's very early in the morning there. We have Buck Angel. Hi, Buck. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to have a conversation with you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for joining myself and Ryan tonight, this morning for you. That's great.
When Robin announces, like, hey, do you want to co-host? I'm like, oh my god.
Right, because you like to have conversation, which is what this is all about. Right on.
That's right. So I don't know how I came upon your channel on YouTube, Buck. So for anybody who hasn't watched it, it's just Buck Angel. Very easy to find. I'm not sure. I think because previously I've been watching a bit of Blair White, so maybe it sort of, came up, with the algorithm, that sort of thing, and came into my feed. So I can't really remember that sort of thing. But I want to say a huge thank you for joining us tonight. It's very early for you over there. So my hope for this evening's conversation, we were just talking briefly there about the media and free speech, and Cafe Lockdown encourages secure protectors of free speech. And so, my hope for this evening is that we can have a conversation about this issue about trans that's become really divisive and toxic. And it's a narrative from the mainstream media that's really taken over and turned something it's become something really awful. And so I'm really grateful that you're here this evening to bring a different perspective with more
Thank you.
sense.
Yeah, no. See, even when you were saying that, it makes me sad because people used to not do that when they said trans. And I,
Yeah.
I feel this, and and I don't in any way blame you for that because I believe
Mm.
the reason why the conversation we're about to have, but it saddens me that people have this energy now around trans, right? It never was like that before. So
That's
again, I
right.
thank you so much to open this up to having some real conversation about what's happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I know certainly within the freedom movement, you know, we're very loving and kind people. And then when all of this started in the media, my heart said to me, this is not right. It's not okay because, I don't like the mainstream media. Everybody here knows that. And so not only did my instincts tell me that this is wrong, but because it was coming from the media, I knew automatically that it's not right and it's not okay. And when your heart tells you that,
Right.
when the media is telling you to hate somebody or find somebody offensive or all the rest of it, it's rubbish. It's just
That's
rubbish.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable that we're just having this sort of one side. But, I'd say here in the States, I'm not sure about over there, the media. I do watch media from there, but I would say here in the States, we have two sides here that are pretty hardcore. And I'm going to say that I pretty much sort of more lie in the middle of things that way. I really I'm here to build a bridge with you. I probably think we might have some political differences, but I don't care. That doesn't
Yeah.
bother me at all.
Yeah.
And in fact, I like that. I would say it's very important that we learn as people with some differences of opinions or ideas or even lifestyles that we need to have, these ideas that we can have these and still exist together and walk the world together. But there's this dominant force that's happening, and all of us probably come from different possibly walks of lives or things, but there's a dominant force that all of us put us together here. And I believe that dominant voice is what you're talking about. There's media that is not representative of us people who want to have a conversation. You're allowed to disagree, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to
That's
agree with
right.
my transition. You just don't have to do it. And I don't need you to do it to walk the world. That's, I think, really important part of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're seeing a lot in the media at the moment. It's like just very just blatantly in your face while pretending to care. I think, most people at this point, even on the LGBT community, look at Pride Month with this kind of just disdain and eye rolls and just, yes, okay, here's your, $5, go away now. Like, it's so clearly just to push something and not actually care about the, group that they're purporting to represent.
That's right. I feel the same way. Totally. Here in the States, it's completely out of control. So, I believe pride could be important on some level, but I have mixed feelings about it. I'll be as an older person too. I think, I've been around for so long and done this for so long that I'm wondering, so I do feel like I have a lot of the rights, but I'm wondering if pride is important for a younger generation too. But has it been taken over by corporate over there? Because it has over here.
Oh, it's absolutely wild.
Yeah.
You have the 4 major banks in Australia basically tripping over each other to sponsor floats and stuff by groups of activists, telling you how oppressed they are. Like, it's absurd. Like, it is just absurd.
Hilarious.
But before we move on, of course, Ryan and myself know who you are. I guess we have an idea about your background and your channel and that sort of thing and your story. But for everybody watching, can you introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about you?
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Buck Angel. I'm a female to male transsexual. So I'm a biological female and I transition to sort of appear as male in the world. And I walk the world as a man, though I do acknowledge my biology. And I'm a woman who wants to live as a man, pretty much. It's super simple. And that should not be controversial, by the way. It's the whole reason I'm a transsexual. And so, I'll be completely transparent here. I started my career in the pornography space. And I did that like 20 something years ago. And from that, I sort of parlayed into becoming a public speaker, and I've been traveled the world speaking to thousands of people about my transition to live this way. And from there, I don't really call myself an activist anymore. I think it's been hijacked by crazy people, so I actually don't want to be an activist. So I would say I advocate for freedom of speech. I advocate for truth, justice. I advocate. And so really the bottom line is that I'm here for the kids. I'm a 61-year-old person now, and I transitioned to live this way 30 years ago. Doesn't make me an authority, but it makes me a sort of elder in this community. And I've done a lot of work for championing LGBT rights. And so I do feel that my voice is kind of in a space that I have a different opinion. And so that's kind of what I'm starting to be known as. And also that I fight for children not to transition. So as an elder in a trans or transsexual community, I do not believe children are trans, and I do not believe that's a healthy space to go down. And I also, one more thing is I want to let you know that I identify as a man, though my medical, because I have a mental disorder called gender dysphoria. I will accept my mental disorder. I have no issues with that. This is an actual mental disorder. And so it's called gender dysphoria. And I call myself a transsexual. I do not align with the transgender space. And that's because I consider myself a medical transition in order to sort of walk the world. So if you see, I appear male, I hope to you. And that's the whole point of the transition for us in this space, in this transitional space. Our point is to look like men and women and to walk the world so that you would never even know that I'm a biological female. So that's where that schism happens with this newer kind of space and people like myself.
I mean, I can say with confidence that you look more like a man than I do. Let's just address that elephant in the room.
Hilarious. Right on.
So funny. When we were talking, sorry, Ryan.
I think that's a good kind of segue to go into it because. I've used some terms that Robin and I are pretty familiar with, but I'm sure a lot of the people aren't, which is trans medicalist, because a lot of people at the moment would just be saying I identify as blank, pronouns, zim, tune in next week for my new ones, and you see all this kind of stuff. So, what would be the, kind of differences between what you would define as clearly what is trans medicalism, was gender dysphoria versus the modern day stuff that we all just look at in horror.
No, and that's why I have to be so specific. Sorry, Robin. That's why I need to be so specific. I don't want people that's why I'm here, to show you a difference. And that I accept everything that those people are saying don't exist, right? Biology doesn't exist. What? I wouldn't be here if biology doesn't exist. Number two, that it's not a mental disorder. What? It's a complete mental disorder. It's not normal to want to be in the other, right? And that's okay. It doesn't make me, and in fact, it actually helps me to have the disorder because it helps me understand why I feel this way. And I feel, and it really, really helped me become a better person. It's like anything that you get a diagnosis and you're like, oh, that's the problem. I can fix it now and move on. So sorry, Robin. Yeah.
Well, no, that's okay. So I just wanted to say happy birthday. It was your birthday the other day, wasn't it?
It was. I turned 61. It's crazy. That I have to tell you, age is really amazing. And I think that's the other reason why I sort of put myself out in the world. I want people to see a 61-year-old person like myself, and I'm healthy and I'm focused and I'm happy. And this idea that you age, and also that comes a lot in the LGBT community. There's a lot of ageism.
Oh, yes.
It's shocking. I'm like, what? You would think that you would want to hear from me. I have a lot of, on some level knowledge of what happened. And it's just bizarre that ageism is, So I turned 61.
Wow.
Yeah, you hit 30 and you're dead.
Your life's over.
Wow.
When we were talking before about because Buck wanted to, sorry, I'm talking to the audience. Buck wanted to know where I am and where Ryan is. So we were talking about West Australia and Melbourne. And Buck told us that just before the cold and flu situation, Buck was actually on a speaking tour in Australia and nearly got shut down
Stranded.
here forever.
Yep. I would have become an Australian citizen. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I would have been stuck there for at least a year. I don't know when you started flights again. I think you shut down March 2nd or something. I flew out March 1st. It was like literally the next day it shut down. It was so crazy. I was like, wow. Yeah.
That's crazy. So you just mentioned there about dysmorphia. So that was one of the first things that I wanted to talk about, because I think that's really, I think that from watching your videos, and I do have to say this because through watching your videos, I've really gained another perspective and a lot of knowledge, actually, because like I mentioned before, there was something in my heart. I knew it wasn't right, and you articulate it for people. And so to me, this understanding of dysphoria for me was really important to understand with this nonsense and with people such as yourself that have dysphoria. So I'd like to go ahead and play this little clip. It's from your channel with Kelly that you interviewed, and we'll just play that and come back and have a little bit of a chat about it. So let's add that to the screen.
I mean,
Right on.
that's what being transgender is, you know, like how could I, what else would it mean to be trans?
Yeah. When someone says, I want to be trans, that speaks identity, right?
Correct.
For myself, I did not transition to be trans. I don't know. I mean, I transitioned to be a man. I think that's probably, it seems to me, like what you did.
Right. And I think that like the whole, I feel like they've been pushing this ideology that you don't need to want to pass anymore. And I think that's a huge piece of it. Huge. If you are truly transgender, you should want to pass with everything in your being. You know,
it's like I'm talking to a smart kid right now. I'm like, duh. That was the whole reason we transitioned to live. So as you probably know or don't know, I use the word transsexual because I needed to sort of get away from that. It felt toxic. It felt no way, shape, or form was I being represented. Did I feel in any way, shape, or form what I did or have done? And what people like, I think you and me are very identical. We have gender dysphoria. We needed to transition to look like men and women. We wanted to get back out into the world and live our lives. And I needed people to see the difference of this choosing identity as trans, and everyone's out of their minds. And then people like us, we're just like, we just want to like get our shit together and move forward. And
so I guess my first question would be talking about choosing an identity and dysphoria, because it's different, especially in this current climate. I think that's vital for people to understand and cut through this mainstream media narrative that's nonsense. Can you talk to us about that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, you know, it's hurt. Is it hurtful to me? On some level, what's hurtful is the fact that we're lying to people like you. And you know, we need to be honest about who we are. And that is how I've lived my life as a transsexual person for 30 years. And I have been very welcomed in the world. And there has been hate. There will always be hate. I don't care who and what you are. People are going to hate you for your religion. They're going to hate you for the way you look. You know, there's just hate in the world. And once you learn how to navigate through that, you have a beautiful life. So we're telling people that they have to like us, and that you can these people are just transgender now, and anyone knows they're transgender, and children are transgender, and now they're talking about babies are transgender. And I'm like, wait, what's next? Because this is out of control, because dysphoria is a very, very small thing. And if you noticed, how come we never talked about it like the way we're talking about it now. And I can tell you in a minute why I think that is. But what they'll tell you is, well, it wasn't put out in the world. It wasn't accessible. Yes, it was. Okay. I transitioned 30 years ago without any knowledge of any of this. Right. So there's that. I can sort of poke a hole in that. And when I transitioned, nobody else was in some level transitioning, yet everyone knew I was transitioning, if that makes sense. Yet how come they didn't say, oh, well, I feel that nobody did. Yet 20 years later, many of those people started to see things and say, oh, I think I'm transgender. What does that mean you think you are? Right. And also, I'm not transgender. I have gender dysphoria. Transsexualism is the name of the mental disorder. It's not who you are. I'm not transsexual. I'm a person who has gender dysphoria. That's right. So I'm not my cancer. I have cancer. Does that make sense? Yeah. So now we have this idea that anyone can be trans even without gender dysphoria. I'm like, that was really shocking for me. I'll tell you all that. It was so, I just couldn't even believe they were saying that. And then I couldn't even believe the transgender community, WPATH, which is the World Professional Organization of Transgender Health, or it's a scam. It's a total, people don't understand that's a self-appointed organization. It's not appointed by
the World Health Organization.
That's right. It's not. It's literally a self-appointed organization where they pick who comes in, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So how are they the experts? Because no one's asking me, and I have a different opinion, and I am a transsexual, right? So it's it's a group of people who are very like-minded in their thought, and they're giving their opinions about what needs to be done. Much of the stuff that's coming out isn't even scientifically, factually based. And I can also prove that, right? Where they will ignore you that puberty blockers are safe for kids. No, they're not. And we all know it. Yet we're all just like, yeah, it is, because the World Professional Organization of Twats decided that it was okay. So anyway, getting back to gender dysphoria, that's the whole point. I don't want to be this, and I would have preferred to have been born male. It's not something I want or I choose or I decide I am on a whim. Like, I had to go through years of therapy, and so back in the day, we used to want you to kind of get out of this space, right? We were hoping you would sort of grow, and nobody on some level celebrated this. We accepted it. We got it. We tried to get out of it. We couldn't. Then we decided the next steps were medical intervention. And that's why we were so, I think, on some level, not pushed against the way we are today, because we accepted what we had, which in turn let you accept what we had. We participate in the world. I never push against you. So the narratives coming out of that go completely against everything I have lived, as well as everything I sort of believe in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on that note, because, when you were talking about, gender dysphoria, being transsexual, there is a clear start point and then a clear, objective and goal, somewhere that you are actively aiming, and there is a clear process with steps involved. And in the modern day, we're just seeing this unhinged kind of insanity. There's no end point. People just changing genders on a whim, and there's no end point, because there's no clear definitions to it, and it's clearly not mentally healthy either. You can't tell me that's going to lead to good outcomes and stuff. But my question is kind of just, why do you think that is the dominant narrative that's being pushed right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as an elder in this community, and being in this space for 30 years, what I see is a dominant voice, number one. So who's that dominant voice? Trans women. Okay, trans women. If you look, do you see a lot of guys like me actually talking about this? Or no, they're not, and they don't get to necessarily have the same platform. I really pushed to get this platform. And again, thank you for having me on to have this conversation. But that being said, you don't see a lot of this. So what's happening is there's a dominant voice in this sort of space, and they'll tend to be trans women, right? There's no doubt about it. And also you can say everything is about trans women, right? Trans women in sports, trans women in the bathroom, trans women are women, and that's all you ever hear. You never hear, what about trans men? So that being said, we also need to be honest here and this is where I'm going to tell you, people would immediately call me a transphobe and immediately tell me I'm against everything. Trans women are biological males. Like, stop it, people. Just stop acting like it's not the truth. It's the actual truth.
Yeah, or trans women have periods, or
so you have to look. So look at this now. These are biological men who want to live like women. Nope. Clearly it's totally okay with me. I don't have an issue with any of that. Clearly it's what I did. What I have an issue with is people aren't acknowledging what these trans women and their experiences. I was socialized as a female for 30 years of my life. I'm born female, raised female, lived female. Opposite are them. They were born male, raised male, socialized as male, and then decided to transition to be women. They will argue this, what I'm telling you right now. You can't argue it. It's a fact. And the fact being is men are actually raised different than women. I mean, this is where I'm telling you where they want to take biology out of it, because then they could say that this, what I'm telling you, isn't true, right? That men are socialized different than women, and I was never a man, I was always a woman. Dude, what world are you living?
Signed female at birth.
I know that also upsets me because I accept my biology, and I was like signed anything. I'm an actual biological female. So don't try to change my story. Change yours all you want, friend. You were born some kind of glitter animal out of some dinosaur's place. I don't really care. But don't. So my point being is that, so I think it's being run by trans women who have a different way of being, and that if you see the dominance in it, you can see it, that their activism is so angry and so mean, and they want to punch you in the face if you don't, who does that? And if you want the world to accept you, you better knock that stuff off, because now what's happening is it's going back now.
Yep.
Really? People don't like us anymore. And I honestly don't blame you. I honestly don't blame you.
That's what really upsets me. Because that really gets to me, because I love people. It sounds wanky.
No, it doesn't.
But and what's happening right now, because I'm not a young person, and I remember growing up, and it was never like it is now, and I see damage being done.
That's right.
And it really weighs on my heart,
Thank you for saying that. I don't think you're a hater. I don't think most people are haters. But how can you not start to pardon me, hate might be a strong word. How can you start to disapprove or push against something that you factually see is not true? Right? Factually, you see that is a man who wants to be a woman. Who cares? Let's move on now. Let's figure it out. But no, when I start telling you that I'm not a female, and that I'm really a man, and that I was always a man, and that you're gonna go, what, dude? No, you're not gonna appreciate me on some level. You're gonna say you're a liar. And why would you ever accept me? I'm just lying to your face about what I am. And why would I have? I guess the question to me is, to this transgender narrative, why are you lying? Why are you lying about who you are?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so just so we mentioned before, and it was explained, and I understand that to be a transsexual is accompanied by having gender dysphoria.
Yes.
Right? And so
That's right.
This idea of I'm trying to get it all out. It's really difficult. I'm sorry, but when you were younger. Because through some of your episodes, I've heard you talking about being gender non-conforming when you were growing up. So, what you were wearing and those sorts of things. So gender non-conformity versus this identity thought that's happening right now with children. And, if Jane wants to wear brown pants, a brown shirt, and play with the truck, she's not gender non-conforming anymore. It's an identity she's choosing because she wants to be a man.
Yep.
have I got that right? That's
That's
even
what they're
just saying
saying.
that loud doesn't make sense.
No, of course it. Look, we fought to get out of those spaces of we are regressing, people.
Yeah.
My God, just because a kid wants to dress in whatever things they're wearing, how is that their identity? How is what? Of course, every kid does that. You tell me, probably both of you played with things that we all do that as kids. That has no, and it's never. And also, if this was a situation, how come we weren't transitioning children 20 years ago? How come we weren't doing what we're doing today? If these kids haven't changed, I was one of those kids. You were one of those kids. There's no way anyone watching this didn't play with things that probably weren't appropriate for their gender, right? So that's the point I'm trying to make here. What are you talking about, trans kids? These kids are just growing up. They're actually finding their space in the world. They're trying on this hat and they're trying on that hat, and they're, you know what I mean? They're playing with this toy and that toy. And since when is that when is that a specific, right? That is dangerous. It's so dangerous. It's dangerous.
It is. It gets absurd when, because these are typically the same people who are talking about, like, you know, conforming genders and like non-binary and all that kind of stuff, and then simultaneously is like, you know, we just don't see, you know, tomboys anymore. You know, we don't see effeminate guys anymore. They're just like, no, they have a, you know, exceedingly rare condition that's popping up all the time all of a sudden.
Like, that's right. And that's scary. And so talking about that, well, maybe these kids are gay. Well, how do you know? And now you're going to push them because you are, when you're the one telling them. The adult is telling the child. There is no way that child, when a child says they're trans, I'm like, fake. Because when I was growing up, I felt like a boy. I said it all the time. I want to be a boy. I want to be a boy. But a lot of girls do that. It doesn't necessarily a pinpoint of that, right? And so now the kids are supposedly going, I'm trans. Well, where are they learning that language from? Because that's not true dysphoria. True dysphoria is I feel like a boy. But then again, is that actually dysphoria? And is the kid going through therapy? They're not even going through therapy. They're just, okay, my kid says they're trans. Let's just put them on hormone blockers and move forward. I'm like, this is absurd. I mean, I'm serious. As a transsexual, I'm shocked that we're doing
this. And there's so many stories on your channel, Buck, of people speaking to you, and young people talking about, you know, they went to a gender clinic, they had a 30-minute therapy or a 30-minute session or a 45-minute session, and they walk out with a prescription.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow.
For blockers or hormones. Well,
something else I found crazy, because I was doing a refresh on some of your interviews and stuff as well, and you were pointing out that 30 years ago, when you were transitioning, when, you know, the idea of, like, you know, transitioning stuff was on the fringes of society.
That's right.
Like, people did not understand it, and you were told very descriptively and like comprehensively, these are the side effects, these are specific drugs, these are all this, these are all that.
Right.
And now, you know, 30 years of advances in it, and apparently we've regressed in knowledge, and it's just, oh, you can just put a pause on puberty. Oh, now she'll be right. Like, it's all fine. Like, how did we get to that point?
Money. There's no doubt. I'm going to just be blunt on it. Now, I also want people to understand, I am not against transitioning. This has been amazing for me. I would not be this person today. I would not have succeeded in my life. I would not have a beautiful, amazing family. I would not have businesses. I really advanced in my space in the world, and I'm a participant in the world. And that's what I want people to know. People like me want to participate in the world. We want to walk the world. We want to have businesses and jobs and pay taxes and just be like you. We don't want to be a burden on the world. So that's really important that people understand that I'm not against transition. I'm against not doing the proper roads. And, you know, I do think somebody would be better off getting out of their dysphoria than living in their dysphoria. And why I believe that we need to bring back mental health care. And we're not doing mental health care. These kids and young people are being pushed through a system that says, oh, you're trans. And so I think that was first important, but I'm sorry, I totally forgot what question you asked me. It was
no, like you nailed it. Just like, you know, you back 30 years ago, you were told so comprehensively, like, the exact process.
And they're totally saying the opposite, that these things are reversible, that do you actually think this is reversible? Are you
No.
insane? This is not reversible. I went through major medical problems, by the way. I actually almost died. And then the community doesn't want me to talk about that, right? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm trying to tell you, this is how hardcore this stuff is on your body. And I was an actual experiment on my actual endocrinologist, my doctor who started my hormones, never had worked with a trans man before. And so he said, I don't know what I'm doing. You're my guinea pig. That's really what he said to me. Could you imagine today? Like, no, they would never be honest about it. At least my doctor was honest. And I'm the one who got to say, I still want to do it. But I was 30 years old. I wasn't 10. You think a 10-year-old is going to be like, yeah, it's cool. I don't ever want to be pregnant. I don't ever want to have sex. I want to have brittle bones and be completely messed up when I'm older. What the heck's going on here when you think a 10-year-old and you think a parent, do you think that's actually okay to put that kind of pressure on a parent? To tell them if you don't transition your kid? It's like, what are you talking about? Don't tell me that.
And that's what two things there, listening to the people that you interview, Buck, is that a lot of your guests talk about that they didn't realize or weren't informed. We have lots of conversations in the freedom movement about informed consent, and that through this 3-year shit show, it hasn't existed. And it's a similar situation with this. There's no informed consent. And particularly when you're talking about medicalizing children, they for sure can't give informed consent. And then if you're not informing parents,
what's happening and how is that legal? And there's this thing here in the States, I don't know there, but children's advocacy, give children autonomy over their body. I'm like, what? Okay, then you're going to give them alcohol, you're going to give them drugs, you're going to give them everything. Then if you're telling me that a 10-year-old can make a choice to actually change their body, okay, forever, don't you dare tell me it's reversible, forever, then you're telling me that kid can make a choice to drink. So what's the difference? Because they can make a choice. So that's why these people are so full of it. A kid does not know who they are. I did not know. Yes, I eventually did transition, but I will tell you this. I did struggle. There is no doubt about it. I struggled. You struggled, Robin. We all struggle as we grow up. It is part of growing up. And I would not be the strong-willed, thick-skinned human if I did not struggle and fall and struggle and fall. That is important, especially for children. If they don't learn this behavior, they will not move forward and learn how to take risks or do things that enable them to grow and be. Now we're coddling children and saying, oh, watch out, don't misgender me. And when I see it makes me so angry when I see a 20-year-old working at Starbucks crying because he can't handle the customers and he has to work 8 hours. I'm like, okay, we are so screwed. My dad would have beat me. I'm not saying, you know what I mean, but my dad would have just get your ass to that job.
Do your job. That's right. Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you talked about being young, and particularly about our struggles when we're young, and all of us have struggles when we're young and going through our teenage years. And I think Ryan, you touched on it before. Where has this new movement? I don't know what else to term it at the moment. This new movement come from, and it comes up when I'm watching your videos and a few other people about social contagion. Even Peterson talks about this, and a few other people I've been watching. So I think I have another clip from your channel, Buck. So I'm just going to add that, and then we'll come back and talk about, the struggles you have when you're young and this social contagion that's going on at the moment.
Yeah.
Just add that and have a go.
I do believe in social contagion. I don't know how you all believe, but I believe in social contagion. And I can see it with my own eyes. And I'm not drunk and stoned and wasted. And nope, I'm focused. And I watch. And I see. And I listen to what all of these people who are all of a sudden trans out of nowhere, I listen to what they're saying. I also listen to detransitioners, because detransitioners were once those kids, right?
So there's a couple of acronyms that I like at the moment, BC and AC. So before COVID and after COVID.
Wow.
I'm just wondering, I've been very focused on freedom and liberty for the past 3 years. And this new movement, as I've just coined it 5 minutes ago, snuck upon me and was introduced to me, as I mentioned, through the mainstream media. So before COVID, after COVID, but when did you notice this new movement happening, especially with the focus on the children and the transgender females and this sort of stuff? When did you notice this happening?
Well, I'll tell you, I noticed 10 years ago. I'll be honest
Wow.
with you, and
Okay.
that was way before lockdown.
Yeah.
Lockdown, I think, raised it a lot, but we can get into that. But that being said, I noticed 10 years ago, and I was on the Joe Rogan show about 10
Oh,
years.
are you?
Yeah, about 10 years. Maybe it's been 10 years or something, maybe a little less, maybe 8 or something. Around that time was when it started to sort of get really, people started noticing this weird thing coming out. And I was noticing it, but I was I'm always that guy who tries to look at things from a sort of different lens, if that makes sense. I realize things change, culture changes, the world changes, things start moving forward, I think. And on some level, I thought maybe we're moving forward a little, and now we're sort of opening it up here and having a little more access to it, and insurance is coming on board, which is things I fought for, to get us into a space of medicalization, that, we could be insured, because it is a mental, and it's why I've always fought for it to be a disorder, because then we're in a medical space, which is very important, and we're taken care of medically, because it's a very medicalized thing. So I started noticing, and I started, when I went on Joe Rogan, I came on because that was when the MMA fighter, Fallon Fox, I think her name was.
Yes.
She was a trans woman. She knocked the crap out of that. I mean, I'm not laughing till I'm laughing, so I don't cry, because it was insane. She busted that lady's skull. So that was the first sort of introduction, not only for myself, but even for the world. And Joe Rogan, being in that world, MMA, he was like, "What? This is absurd." And I was the only one. I was the only tranny. I was the one. He found me because I was like, "What is this?" And he found me and he brought me on his show, and we had it. And I was like, "Look, dude, I'm not cool with it either." And so that started not only me in the hot water of this community, because I wasn't cool with that. And so then I started, I'm gonna sit back a little. I'm gonna watch. I have a different way of being. But right before COVID, I would say maybe then 5 years ago or so. So it's been how many years of COVID? I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I just saw the explosion. I was like, I got it. It was the kids. I tell you, I don't care what adults do. I honestly do not care. I mean, I come from the world of pornography, so I don't really care what adults do with themselves. I think they have the right to do whatever they need to do, as long as it's in a legal space. But that being said, when I saw kids, you guys, I was like, what? Trans kids? Yeah. It was shocking.
This is my question about social contagion, because if we look at bulimia or cutting and those sorts of things, if you go and have a look at it, it is a social contagion. I think it was France. Was it France? Was it France? No, sorry, Singapore. Singapore or Hong Kong? Sorry, Singapore, Hong Kong never existed, and then there was one case, and then it spread like a and so. Just listening to people, and especially with the introduction of social media and lots of screen time for teenagers, in combination with what we were just talking about, when you're young and having hard times and wanting to be accepted by the tribe and not being excluded.
Totally.
And, you know, this conglomeration of things like this, I feel like this social contagion is a really big factor, particularly now, with the young people.
It's so sad.
that?
Yeah, how
Yeah.
you got? Come on, man. We're all adults here. We know what we see. You know, that's called gaslighting. It's when people tell you that you're not seeing it, and I'm telling you, you're seeing it. I'm seeing it as a transsexual. I want people to transition. It is the best thing. But it's not that I don't want people to transition, and I also want you to understand we exist. We are here. We have always been here. We've just walked among you, and you just didn't know it because that was the whole point. So it's not that transsexualism is all of a sudden this new kind of thing. What's new is this thing that I also call a movement, where we are telling children that they can change their sex. You cannot change your sex. I never changed my sex. My sex doesn't go anywhere. It's here. So if you're going to lie to these young people about what's really happening, then to me, it's a false movement. And it's a false narrative. And what are you doing to these kids? Because you're lying to them. I know who I am and what I am, and I made this choice as an adult. So that's why I believe it's a social contagion, because it didn't happen before. And everybody keeps telling me, well, Buck, it's because I said, but how come all the girls and the women when I transitioned, who are all butch lesbians as well as I was, how come they all were like, ew, that's so gross. I would never do that. But I was like, I have to do it. So, you know, I'm telling you, it didn't come into effect this insane until we got social media. And, you know, stop acting like social media isn't a part of this space. You can see it with other things. Same with girls who go on TikTok. There's all those insane things that people are saying they have some kind of disorder, or it's not just trans, but trans seems to be the sort of dominant, you know, thing that's happening with these young people, because I told you, you can self-ID. You don't even have to go to a doctor, or you can go online in 20 minutes, have a Zoom call with some nurse practitioner, whatever that is, and she can tell you, oh, sure, you're trans. Could you imagine in 20 minutes? It took me years to have the diagnosis.
Can you tell everybody what sorry, Ryan, just quickly, can you tell everybody what self-ID is, Buck? Because I think that's really important too.
Yes. So self-ID has been appointed, that they're saying that anyone knows they're trans. Like, you just know it. It's innate in your body. And I'm like, no, you don't. And number one. Number two, trans is an identity. Trans is a medical disorder. So now you can anybody, you do not need to go to a doctor. You can say, I'm trans because I know I'm trans, because my buddies over here on TikTok told me I was trans, so I must be trans. And that's exactly what's happening. If you look at my interviews with detransitioners, they'll all tell you that they got peer pressure. Many of them had pressure to transition, and so that's how I know that it is on some level a social contagion. Yet this community tends not to want to be honest about. You know, I don't understand why my community doesn't say, well, wait a minute, you're right, we need to slow down here. But I believe that they want number, because some people think there's power in numbers, right? So I feel like there's this idea that the more people we get who are trans, the more that it will become this powerful movement. I mean, I can't think of why we would want so many people to transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were you going to say, Ryan? Sorry.
Yeah, because the other side of the social contagion is that at the moment, the trans identity is not even just like a medical disorder or anything like that. It's like it's a status symbol. And we are seeing it a lot among celebrities, among kind of just like, you know, upper echelons of society. We've had MPs here in Victoria who, like, all of their kids have been trans, and it's just like, what are the statistical
How does that
odds?
happen?
Yeah, show me the statistical odds of that happening naturally.
Zero.
Yeah, exactly. But on the flip side, like, as you were just saying before, like, you know, when people are transitioning, it's, you know, celebrated now. It's this wonderful, you know, liberating, almost kind of religious experience, like a kind of religious rebirth. But if you turn back on it, then you are immediately shunned. you are immediately, you're gaslit, you're canceled,
Yep.
like you're the worst person ever. And as you were saying, like, you know, this is a medical condition. Like if someone had, you know, had a cancer screening and it came positive and everyone was freaking out and stuff, and as I was like, oh no, like you're all clear, like you actually don't have cancer. Like you wouldn't like scream at someone or cancel them or, you know, could like lose your absolute mind at them over it. So why are we doing that for something that, as you've said, is a serious condition, has serious medical interventions and stuff for it? Like, why is this only one way to celebrate who you are?
Well, that's an excellent question. And that's where the ideological aspect of it comes in, right? So we talk about it being an ideology now, which also makes me so sad. This is not an ideology.
Yeah.
This is like, this is not something to aspire to. Let me just say that to all of you out there. I did not aspire to be this. And I think we're giving this message, but everything you just said, my friend, is it's become sort of like a social, you know, thing to attain a status symbol or a cool thing, or, you know, and we all know that you can lay it on top of a lot of sort of things that happen throughout time and what happened. And most of these are young girls, right? We know that. So we have to look at that aspect of it. Why is it predominantly young girls? And so we're not looking at all the aspects of it. They're struggling. I was a young girl. I struggled with my puberty, of course. So did you, probably, or so did you, Ryan. But female puberty is different than male puberty. And there's a big thing that happens, and I will never forget going through my puberty. And it was difficult, and, you know, it was a struggle, but I'm a healthy human being because I went through puberty, you know. And do I look like a female to any of you?
No, absolutely not.
So I went through puberty.
I've made my opinion pretty clear.
I went through puberty. So right, I went through puberty. So I can blow a hole in that hole. You need puberty blockers or you're not. Bullshit. Excuse me. Sorry. I actually went on puberty and lived as a woman for 30 years. Right. So that's not true. And I'm healthy. I have no medical issues. The medical issues came from the testosterone being in my body for a long time and nobody understanding. Remember, I'm an experiment. The doctor even told me we have no studies on the long-term effects of what we still don't have studies. Can you imagine? We still don't have studies. And I tell people what's wrong and what happened to me, and nobody wants to hear it in the community. They're like, oh no, testosterone is safe. I'm like, why do you think it's a controlled substance, people? If it was safe, you could literally go buy it at the supermarket. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, it's so absurd. The whole thing is absurd. And we've taken it to a level of it's all safe. And if they change their mind, go look at some of my interviews with detransitioners who have been completely destroyed, breasts removed, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff that should never happen to a young person, ever, ever.
So we talked about, social contagion. Also, I think the self-ID was really important too. And
thank you.
And definitely people should go and have a look at your videos with detransitioners. Very important. And then the other thing I wanted to just touch on was activists, because I feel like in this new movement, you know, we've just talked about social contagion, but also the activists, and we were just talking about before, you know, that word now has been co-opted and everything surrounding it, and the real meaning behind it has just been, you know, sabotaged, basically. So I do have one last clip from your channel that I want to play, and then we'll pop back and have a bit of a chat about activists.
I don't expect anybody to agree with me in my transition. No way. I do not. It doesn't matter to me. I do not need you to agree. You might just think what I did is really sick and weird, and that's okay. You're more than welcome to think that. Honestly, it just I for some reason I don't think you can see past your own thing, and then that's why it doesn't really hurt me, because I would think that you would want a person like me to be happy. You know, I would think that you would want to see the fact that I'm participating. I'm not pushing against anybody. I'm participating. And I would think that's what you would want from somebody like me. And that's what I want you to see. I'm not a trans activist. I'm not pushing against you. I don't want to take your space. I've been doing this, living this way for 30 years. I think it's 31 now. So that's why I want to be around people who don't necessarily agree with what I am doing. Because if you don't see me and you don't actually hang out with me, even though we're only hanging out here, then you're not going to be able to form an actual real opinion. I think many people today are forming opinions about trans people because of the crazy trans people. And I want you to see a different side of that. And I want you to see that this really is an important choice I've made.
So, yeah, I mean, we all know that, you know, if you don't agree with what the activists say, you're automatically incorrect and you're the bad person, and you know, all this sort of stuff. And yeah, it's heavily loaded with trans women. We don't see trans men
right.
in all of these things in social media. I'm just wondering how, particularly for you, Buck, how that affects your community, because, you know, we've spent this whole time talking about the rest of society, but what about you and your community? How does all this affect you?
It's sad. I'm telling you, I'm saddened by it because, you know, I believe in community, and I think community is important, especially for younger people. You know, I could say now I'm not necessarily in the community, and I'm fine with that. I live in a world, you know, I prefer to sort of be part of the world than to be sort of ostracized into my community. But I do think young people growing up, especially people marginalized LGBT people, need to have that community. And I grew up in that community, and I've, you know, been through a lot. Of course, we've always argued. That's just nature of humans. But we were never this divided, ever. I never can remember it being so angry. Not only that, it's just gotten nasty and mean. And, you know, and so, you know, where to the LGB wants to disconnect from the TQ, which saddens me on some level. But I do not blame them, the LGB part of it.
I actually watched a video the other week from it was the LGB Alliance Conference 2021, I think, and that was another eye opener for me. And that you know, it's almost like gay, lesbians, and bisexuals are being erased.
That's right. That's right.
To hear people talk about it, it was a real eye opener for me, and I just thought, of course they are. Look what's happening.
I mean, that's what I'm saying with the trend, right? We said that earlier with the kids. How do you know these kids aren't dealing with some other stuff going on? And also, what about their sexuality? You know, so you can't mess with that stuff at such an early age. And so, you know, I see a divide in this community, and even in the trans. Oh gosh, don't think the trans community is happy what they're trying to portray. It is a mess. It is a disaster. You know, there's a lot more people like myself who are transsexual who are starting to speak up. If you will start to see it, it's coming, and we are done. We will not be a part of that nastiness that's coming out of there. We don't want you to see us this way. We're the people who are coming to these shows and having the conversation and feel that we really need to step up here and say, wait a minute, that is not what transsexualism is, and we're not part of that. So no, you can even see breakage in the trans, where we're saying we're transsexual and they're trans. And then, you know, so we're actually just, you know, sort of disengaging and trying to create a narrative like I'm trying to create here. Blair White also, you know, identifies as a transsexual, and she's one of my very great friends. And, you know, we're building alliances within our transsexual community in order to sort of bring back reality. We live in the reality of biology, and we don't want you to think that we're part of that. So, you know, every time I say I'm a biological female, what happens? Everybody's like, oh, okay, I get it. It makes sense, dude. Go on with your life. But if you're like, I'm really actually a man who's pregnant, people are like, what, dude? And also, the pregnant man thing really is, go ahead, dude, get pregnant. No one cares. But when you start putting that stuff, all over the place, people start to look at us like we're totally insane, and it looks insane. But again, he's an adult. He can do whatever the heck he wants. I don't really care. But the problem being is that men don't get pregnant, and he's not being honest about the fact that he's a biological female, dude, and that's why you got pregnant. Because it ain't magic. It's not magic, dude. You actually you're a biological female. You got pregnant. Duh. It's like you had sex, you got pregnant. You think those things change when you change? You can actually still get pregnant. But the other thing I want to say about that is, if he's a pregnant man, why is he on a female magazine? He should be on a men's magazine. And nobody's thinking that. And I said, well, wait a minute here. If he's so man and he's such a pregnant man, why isn't the male right magazines? The male magazines are like, we're not touching that. Women magazines are like, yeah. But I'm like, that doesn't make sense. If he's a pregnant man, why is he on a female? Wouldn't that would give me such dysphoria? First off, I mean, just even thinking about being pregnant, and that's where
mental gymnastics to try to
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
Like, what's that game where you spin the thing, Twister? And you put your arm here and your leg there, and it's like Twister.
No, it's the same with the pronouns. That's why it's all gaslighting. Like today they're they, them, and then tomorrow they're Zer. And I'm like, but and you misgendered me. I go, but yesterday you were they. And today, how can I not misgender you? You're literally changing your pronouns every single day.
Oh my God, you're dead naming me.
And then there's that. I'm like, you people are twisting. And I always told the young people, that was also a thing I saw, the dead name. I said, oh, that's bad, because you're denying where you came from. You can never deny where you come from. If you do that, then you're not being honest about why you are this way. And these kids are saying they're dead naming. I'm like, what? You've got to connect to that. It is so disturbing, the language, right? Transmedicalist, TERF, bigot, Nazi. Like, what are you people doing?
Well, because it's become just so like hyperbolic and tense and just emotive, as you've seen, and like any criticism whatsoever, you are just transphobic scum, the worst thing that comes onto it. But like, as a deviant gay guy myself, we've been seeing, we are seeing groups like Gays Against Groomers, LGBT Alliance, and like, groups that yourself and Blair White and stuff are making to call this out, because it hasn't just been kids that have been getting affected by this, but like there has been the opportunistic sex predators that are now all of a sudden like, actual sex pest men just donning on a wig and a dress, calling themselves Sally, getting access to UK women's prisons. I mean, there's the famous case like Jessica and Eve and stuff like that as well. We've just got these absolutely egregious cases. And if you criticize them, they hide behind essentially your identity, like the thing that you've been working decades towards, going, hey, I just want to live my life. There are others like me around, like, just don't be a dick. It's fine.
That's right.
And now, like, we've just got to this point where it's just like, you have sex pests on lesbian dating apps, and it's like, no, suck the female penis. I made Michael, the lead of Cafe Lockdown, like actually cry with laughter when I told him female penises. Like he could not fathom. Like
it's not fair for them to push that onto you, right?
No.
I didn't have what we call bottom surgery, so I'm still that way. But when my pornography, that was in my pornography space, I talked about it, whatever. But it was relegated to a very specific space that you had to go and look for it. I wasn't, and that being said, I never forced you to believe whatever. So now if you say that they're not a woman, you get nailed and put in jail. I'm like, what do you're going to be put in jail because you know the reality? That's gaslighting. That's why this is so dangerous, people. And I'm hoping people out there are hearing, even if you're against everything I'm saying, this is actually dangerous behavior when you start changing reality. And the reality and facts state everything against what these people are trying to make you believe. They are not women. They are transgender women who are biological men. And that is why I get so mad about it. And women are like, hey, wait a minute here. And no one wants to listen to women. It's a misogynistic movement.
Yeah, it's we had I'm not sure if you know, probably do, Kelly J. Keane.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
out here not too long ago, going around to all the states and doing her holding her
Level of
assemblies and
space.
having people
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah.
about letting women speak and having their own, female only spaces. And of course, we had paid Nazis come in to protest at the same time, and
God.
also all sorts of counter protests, and it just got totally out of
Yeah.
hand. And Kelly says herself that she's not um, transphobic or anything like that. And actually, what she's talking about has nothing to do with
That's right.
trans people. But when we had all the counter protesting people turn up, it then turned into that, and it just
There you go.
exploded into this big mushroom of you know
So gross.
perceived hate and all this sort of stuff. It's just that I'd like to go to the toilet and not have a man in there. Can I not
And why is that trend? Look, I can use the men's room. I bet not one single dude would ever even know. And I go into the stall and I make my business and I leave, right? Like everybody else does. But if you notice, it's different. I've been in the women's room, people. I've been on both sides. I've lived as a man and a woman in this world, pretty much half my life as a woman and half my life as a man. I have a whole perspective on this that not many people can give you.
Yeah,
and I am telling you that if you don't look like a woman, you should not be in the woman's restroom. It is a very specific space. It is a safe space. When I was a woman, I had to look over my shoulder constantly. Even though I was butch or whatever, I felt unsafe in the world. And that is a fact. Don't you dare tell women that they don't feel that way. I lived in that space. It was scary. I have been beaten up for looking a certain way and being followed and all of those things that women keep telling you. And the women's restroom has always been a safe space for women to feel comfortable in there without male energy. And for us to pretend, that's why I'm telling you, it's like they keep saying, we're women. No, you're not. And if you don't make an effort to look like Blair White, nobody would ever know Blair White was, and she goes in, does her business, walks out. Every woman in the world will be perfectly okay with that. And me and you both know that. But they're trying to tell you it's transphobic when you don't let the dude with a beard and a dress on, who's not even making an effort and snapshotting himself in the toilet. Look, I'm in the women's room. You can just see they don't want to participate like I do, or like Blair does, or like we just want to go in. We make it. This is an effort, people. This is not. I have to go to the gym and do the things. It's not a privilege to, I didn't get privileged with these looks. It's like something I actually work on so that I can fit into the world. Do you see what I'm saying here? And so all of a sudden now you can be a lady. Ryan could say, I'm a woman. You could actually do that. And you could actually walk into the women's restroom. Do you know that? That's where I'm trying.
I've seen it. Like
it's absurd.
I live in a pretty progressive area in Melbourne, and just a couple of weeks back, what ended up happening was it was like a musical event, and the second the they thems walked in, like you could immediately see like a mile away, like
you
really
could smell it.
passing. Yeah, you could, like, it's just sixth sense, just like, yep, I know everything about you. I know at least 90% of your political views. Like, you just know it. And so we had a couple of women in the group, and what ended up happening was it was a female toilet, but then all of a sudden, they just hastily had to put in gender neutral, but only on the women's toilet. They didn't touch the men.
That's right on. That's what I'm saying. So you see, I keep showing you. This is all about women. It is all about men taking women's space. I don't care what anybody says. And you can see it. Don't let people gaslight you. And I'm speaking out against it because as a actual biological female and somebody who has fought for women's rights and lived in that space, I am telling you, this is some weird ass movement. It has nothing to do with trans rights. It is specifically coming from a very trans woman, biological male centric space, and they are being mean and disgusting. And when do you show up? Okay, so why are you showing up at a women's only rally? That's where they want to speak and they're allowed to do that. They don't show up at those women do not show up at the trans rallies, but the trans people are always showing up at the women's rallies. That's also what I want you to see. Also, they're always very violent. These trans activists, which I call trans militants, they're militants. It's a militant terrorist. That's terrorism. When you show up at a woman's event and punch a woman in the face, the same thing happened here in San Francisco with Riley Gaines, who's the female swimmer.
Right.
Swim against Leah Thomas. She tied Leah Thomas, yet they gave the trophy to Leah Thomas for photos. I'm like, this is so sick, people. I was a female athlete and a high-ranking female athlete. I am telling you, and so Riley Gaines is speaking at the university, and then they show up, and start protesting her. She's there to speak about women in sports. She's not there to talk about trans anything. And they did nasty things to her. And I'm like, I cannot be a part of this. This is not fighting for my rights. This is taking my rights away. This is telling the world lies and deceitful stuff. And then they see insane, angry people who are they're trans. And I'm like, you're not even trans. You're using trans as a political space. You are.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? It's become some sort of, trans has now become political as well. Right. Some sort of political football that they kick around. All over the place. I'm an actual person who has a disorder that it's so simple, you guys. It's so simple, and it's always been simple, and it hasn't been what you see. And it's why I will refuse to let that particular space represent me. And it's why I say these things that are hard for many other people to say, because you'll get in trouble. You'll be called. I can say it. And nobody can deny what I'm saying. You don't have to believe it, and you don't have to agree with me, but you cannot stop me from saying what needs to be said in order for people like myself to continue to walk this world with you, not without you, with you. And that's what people keep. I'm going to cry because it makes me so emotional, you guys. It does. I get so mad about it because I have a great life. I do not ask for anything, and I do not wish for anything. And where I come from, it was difficult, and it was hard for me to live this life. And I have such a beautiful, amazing gift. I look at this as a gift. I do not look at this as an entitlement. And when I see those people say the things they say, it hurts my existence on so many levels, because I want to be honest. If I wasn't honest, I could not have what I have. And I think I'm only crying out of frustration. I'm just frustrated with the fact that we would do this to young people. Or I don't have to lie. I don't have to lie, and I don't want to lie. I want people to have access to something that gave me freedom. It's the same with gay rights. We fought, and we now can hug and kiss each other in the public and be married and walk the world holding hands and have families. And I don't think this generation sees the stuff we have fought to get. They see the glass half empty. They don't see the glass. I come from the AIDS epidemic. I lost all my friends to AIDS. Do we talk about that? No. We don't talk about that's a genocide. Stop saying trans genocide. There is no there's a gay genocide. It's called AIDS, you idiots. And now no one's even, it's like trans genocide. Show me where the trans dead people are. There isn't any. It's unbelievable to me that I'm in a position to have to argue against my own community. It's why I tell you it's not my community anymore. It's not. It's not. This is why the divisive nature of what's going on right now is just off
sick.
The hook, basically.
It's sick.
And I think one of the greatest, what really sticks in my mind about what you say is that you just want to walk the world and be part of the world. You don't want to be separate from it. You don't want to, you just want to be part of the world and
that's right.
And to me, that really
thank you
stays with me and leaves a really strong impression and helps to defeat this divisive nature of this new movement that's I don't even want to pay it the respect of saying it's a movement.
Right on.
It's insidious viper that's wormed its way in, and
that's right. That's right. It's an
So,
idea. You know what
around,
actually shocks
you know?
me is how much it's infiltrated into our society, and how it's
Yeah.
infiltrated into our academic space. Well, that's where it comes from. I believe it comes from academia. But that being said, it's really infiltrated into our society, into being forced to do pronouns, and into being forced to, do things that go against other people's beliefs. Look, if you
Yeah.
want to call me a she, you go right ahead. People are going to think you're crazy, but you go right ahead. It doesn't affect me. And that's why this idea of pronouns being violence is so hurtful to somebody like me, who lost all my friends to to AIDS. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting here saying that a pronoun is violence. You want to know what violence is? When the government doesn't step up and help us stop the dying of our gay brothers who are dying from something people call an AIDS. It was insane. And now we're here talking about pronouns are violence.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, get a grip.
It's disgusting
exactly.
and wrong. And
Yeah.
it's forcing people to do things that go against what they believe.
Yeah.
And that's not how we got gay rights, by the way. We never forced people to believe. If they don't want to believe, we're cool with it. We just want to have the same rights in the world. That's all. But it doesn't mean you have to accept me as a person of this. And that's what I keep telling everybody. Why do you think everybody is okay with me? I can sit at a table with a bunch of conservative people who would actually hate somebody like me and walk away as friends. I do it all the time because of my honesty.
I could never imagine growing up like in the 50s or 60s and stuff. Like I've watched all the documentaries and stuff about like, the Stonewall riots, the conditions that led to them, and just, a group of people pushed to a corner. Like, and we have people today that are just like, oh my God, someone disagreed with me on Twitter. Like, I need 3 weeks leave. I need I need to, and then meanwhile, like you're just watching these documentaries and it's just like, because, people don't even realize that, Stonewall was that was run by the mafia, because that was the only place that would take them, because it was actually illegal to serve homophiles at the time alcohol. And like, this is how far like society pushed these people. And then you look at today and it's just like, guys, I'm having a bad day. Society's homophobic. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
what? Yeah, it's absurd. And it's why people like us need to step up and say, wait a minute, you as a gay man, I have a great life, friend. What are you talking about? We do have rights. We have so many more rights than we had even 10 years ago. And these laws that they're passing in the States, I don't think it's reached you yet, but it's going to come soon, where they're actually stopping the transitioning of children. And so, of course, they're calling them anti-trans laws. So I have to keep correcting. These are not anti-trans laws. I have every right to transition in this country. It is not against me. It is against the transitioning of children. They're called safekeeping laws. They're helping to keep children safe from your grubby little hands. So that's how I look at it. It's like, nope, these aren't anti-trans. I have every right as an adult to continue to do what I need to do, which is it's transition is an adult space. Whatever, I don't care. It's an adult space. There's no way a child, and let's say the child is suffering, whatever that means, right? Suffering, because put them in a shirt and a pair of pants and a hat and they're going to be totally fine. But you're telling me, and I have, oh my gosh, there's interviews with women, mothers who put their kids on puberty blockers and regret it. And are starting to speak out about it and say, my child went from a happy little kid to an angry, disassociated, won't talk to anybody, is in the home all day after they started taking the puberty blockers. So they're not helping. They're not.
Right. Yeah. Well, I really liked what you said, just a little back there. But sitting at a table with people that in usual circumstances would not like you, but walk away.
That's right.
Your best friend. This agenda, this narrative, this movement, this nonsense has really infiltrated. But it's really people like you that help lift this veil that has been put in front of everybody. And I really do appreciate you being here with us this evening and the morning for you. And I'm really, really being open with everybody and just telling everyone, because we don't hear this at all unless you search for people like you, or it happened on my algorithm because of Blair. I think we don't hear it. So I really
that's not right. That's what I
Yeah.
also want you all to see. Why is my voice as an elder? I'm an actual elder. I've worked so hard to change the laws and help us move forward in the world. And why is my voice not being part of this conversation? Because I'm not on the same space as you? Like, what? That should say to everybody out there that there is something wrong with this situation, because they're not showing you all sides of the story. And I have a different opinion about what is going on. And I have every right to have that opinion as a transsexual who was part of this early space. And I used myself in a way to be an experiment on purpose so we could move forward in the world and other people could enjoy this space. And I put myself, I did it for me, but I knew that I was doing things for the future. I knew it. And now all of that work is going down the toilet because we're lying to the world and telling them something that isn't true. And that's, we need to, it's just frustrating for me as somebody.
It's maddening, isn't it?
It's maddening.
But that's why, especially what you do, particularly now, is really, really important.
But
Ryan,
you give me voice. And no, I'm sorry. You give me voice. And I'm really going to keep reiterating to you. Thank you so much for that. Because even if we change one person's view in this room, we did a really great thing today. And that's the most important thing, that people need to see that, yes, transsexual people are. They always have been. They always will be. But we are not part of this insanity that is happening. We disagree, honestly, with this stuff. And we, most of us don't think children are trans. Was I a trans kid? No, I was a kid. I was a kid who was feeling a certain way. My parents were super cool about it in the 60s, right? Did my tomboy thing, went through puberty, had a struggle in my life, worked through it. And that's all people need to see, that it made my life better, not worse. And we're showing the opposite with this new shit. As far as I'm concerned, these kids are so messed up and crazy and they're actually detransitioning. That I shouldn't even, if you just put detransitioners right here, you should actually put one on your show. And if you need help, I'll get you.
Yeah, great.
Because they'll be able to see also why I fight for detransitioners. No child should ever be without breasts at 16 and then changing their mind at 17 and having hysterectomies. Like, what are we doing to these young girls? And then they're going, whoops, I changed my mind. Oh my God. Like, now they're literally destroyed. They're destroyed for the rest of their life.
Hurting and sterilizing people. Yeah. Ryan, is there something you want to say or perhaps ask Buck before we round off the stream?
No, I think we've covered a lot of stuff. I've been really thankful of the opportunity as well. I've watched your stuff. I've known about you for a long time. So
Thank you.
When Robin gave me you want to interview Buck, of course I want to.
Right on.
Come on, like 11 p.m. whatever. Like, I'll stay up late. Like,
right on.
I'm interviewing Buck Angel. So thank you very much for your time. I do really appreciate it.
No, you guys are great. Thank you so much.
We've got your YouTube channel, and I think I put your Facebook link in the description as well. And you have Instagram as well. And also, I think you have, Transsexual Unity on Twitter?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, that's one of our new organizations, transsexualunity.org as well, and Transsexual Unity on Twitter. Please follow us. We have rooms every week, and we open it up to all of this kind of conversation because I want you to see a different side. And it's really growing, and people are really starting to understand what's happening here. And I think we're going to make lots of change together, my friend, because me and you have now connected, and together we kind of start to push back on this insanity. And that's how we make change. We sort of coexist, and we realize, even though we come from different spaces, me and you can bring back reality. And that's why I align with you. I align with you to create a space where we can have different opinions.
The last thing I want to say is that we've gone really long.
I know.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
The last thing. Oh, now it's just left my brain. It's just left my brain. Oh, is that there's a lot of conversation at the moment about because of the narrative that mainstream media is presenting, the trash that mainstream media is presenting, that a lot of people are of the opinion that don't give it any oxygen, don't feed it. But that's not going to help. No. I think the conversation really needs to be navigated be useful. And that's why I really appreciate you and your interviews and your show, because it's it's constructive. It's
Thank
not destructive, and that's
Thank
what
you.
mainstream does. That's what social
That's
media
right.
does.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think there's a
I
really big
appreciate that.
difference there to
No, that means
work-
a lot to me. You
Yeah.
know, because I really did. I wanted to do a YouTube channel, but I don't want to do one like everybody else where they're making fun of everybody and
Yeah.
those.
No.
No. That's not my space, and I'm not that kind of person anyway. So I really believe in conversation, and that's why I brought the more conversational interview. And also, I did that to give other people voice, because I can keep beating over your head. But if we have other people who feel the same as me, right? I'm like, this is not right. It only gets. But if I bring other people who believe the same as me, now you get to see I'm not the only one that believes this or sees this, and it really has been tremendous help in getting the message out there and people participating in that. So thanks for seeing that.
Oh, absolutely. Is there something you wanted to add, but before we end the show?
No, thank you so much for listening to me this evening, this afternoon, or this morning. And I do appreciate the platform. And I just want people to know that don't take all of that to heart, what you see out there. It is not true. And that there are people like many, many more people like me who will start to stand up against this. And we don't see it as a healthy part of our trans space. And we also see the lies and the deceit coming out of there. And I don't know if the word ashamed, but we feel very sad that our community has come to this space. I don't even feel prideful, which is so sad to me. I don't feel pride like I used to. And that saddens me a lot. But I do think having these conversations and people coming on and listening has been really great. And so, again, I thank you all so much. Always reach out to me. Also, I'm very accessible. Anybody can find me.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Fantastic. Yeah. I'm your biggest fan.
Right on. Well, I'll be when I come back to Australia. We'll go have coffees.
Oh, that'll be fantastic.
That would be awesome.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to go out with one of our West Australian musicians, of course, Al Muir with "Peaceful Warrior." So, as the chorus says, be brave and be a peaceful warrior. I absolutely love this song. So once again, I'm going to say a huge thank you to Brian and a huge thank you to Buck. I really appreciate it. And I'm just, I have a Cheshire cat grin. So thanks, everyone. And I'm going to say good night.
See ya. Good night.
The San Francisco rain, sweet smelling vegetation pulsing through my veins, pulsing through my veins, playing my new 6-string on the porch, listening to the sounds of nature, opening up my pores, opening up my pores. Falling down on Mother Earth, I smell the taste in every drop, quenching our thirst, quenching our thirst. What do you need from life to live? In this electronic world, what is it that you miss? What are the things that you crave? Can you shake the brainwash off? Stand up and be brave. Be a peaceful warrior, be brave. Yeah, be a peaceful warrior, be brave. My mouth is dry, my soul does yearn for the simple electronic world, what is it that you miss? What are the things that you crave? Can you shake the brainwash off? Stand up and be brave. Be a peaceful warrior, be brave. Yeah, be a peaceful warrior, be